Now, the concept of a benefit privilege, I think, is an important one to drill down on for those who don't understand what a benefit privilege is. Could you give me an example of a benefit privilege?
Certainly. Okay, we were discussing benefit privileges or return of interest to principal, and you look around in your communities and you see highways, you see buildings, you see all manner of facilities which aid the people in their lives and so forth. So these are all things that are returned to the people for the use of their credit. One of the perhaps most overlooked benefit privileges that the people are not aware of is the discharge of public debt.
What does that mean?
What that means is that the people, well, let's put it this way, historically in the United States, in 1933, the government declared a bank emergency for good cause, and then at that point they took up, or in a way they took the gold from the citizens, and in its place the remedy they gave for payment was no longer payment but discharge. Now, discharge is a function of bankruptcy, whereas when you discharge a debt, the debt doesn't go away, but it's put off until a future time when the surety is brought. Now, this is exactly demonstrated in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, you understand? So what happens is the United States or the United Kingdom becomes a constitutor, a government, meaning they are guaranteeing the debt of the citizens. So when we do discharge of debt, and there are several ways to do that, the discharge then goes back to the party who is the constitutor, who in fact is responsible for the liability of the citizens.
Okay, so let's have a look, for example, at this currency here. Now, earlier when we were speaking, I spoke of this as a banknote, and you corrected me. What is this then?
If it's anything like the Federal Reserve note, it's most likely a perpetual annuity bond. I haven't really analyzed your currency here to see if it is the same as, and just on face value, it doesn't appear to be.
I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5.
Okay.
Now, £5 of what is the question, I think, because in our previous Money and Justice video with Dominic and Winston, Dominic revealed that in 1914, on the first day of the First World War, they changed the system so that you could no longer take a £5 note and exchange that for equal value in gold or silver. Now, what you will now get back is a £5 note.
Mm-hmm.
So when I give you a £5 note now, what am I actually giving you? Is that something of value?
It could be. It depends on what credibility I would give to that instrument. Once we got involved in fiat currencies and so forth, we started to comply with law merchant law. Now, law merchant law is a very old law, and it's the law that's demonstrated here in these maritime museums. Whereas, because of the difficulties of trade and of commerce and so forth, they had to start using paper instruments because of the difficulty of using gold and silver. For instance, if gold is transported across the land and the wagon breaks down, you can still retrieve the gold. But if you put gold onto a ship and send it across the deep ocean and the ship sinks, the ability to recover the gold is kaput. So that's where Admiralty came in with bills of ladings and negotiable instruments and so forth, so that that the substance of commerce was not lost, and instead we had a piece of paper, or in our time, computers, which demonstrate, the transactions and so forth. So paper money is as good as gold as a medium of exchange if it's properly used.
Now, we've had problems with currency recently. Would you suggest that would indicate improper use?
I'm not sure exactly what problems you're experiencing.
Well, for example, the value of the dollar going down greatly against other currencies. as a result of trading or, for example, speculative moves on money markets?
Yeah, it's what it basically sums up is that the currency of any political entity, let's say a country, depends on the value of the output of the people who labor. And so depending on what's needed in the world right then, that's what determines the value of the currency. For instance, in the most recent time, the computer age came online, and so those nations which were producing a product that had very high value to the rest of the world, all of a sudden their currency became more valuable based on their product. Other nations which have perhaps no manufacturing or things that are sellable goods in the world, their currency is not worth very much. Because again, the currency represents the product of the people.
That's very interesting. So a country like the United Kingdom, where much of our value creation has been in financial services, now our currency is suffering as a result of the contraction of that particular segment.
Or it may be because the people can start to do transactions virtually over the internet and do not need to come to a man to do a transaction for them. You can do all your banking online, you can do all your stock trading, all those things online, so I don't need to come to you to do that transaction for me. I can do it for myself. So that may contribute to the decline in the value of your currency.
Now, moving on in commerce, I've heard it spoken about that we live in a prepayment system, and prepayment is quite an interesting concept. Many people in this country, when they buy a mobile phone, it has credit on, so it means that they are prepaid in order to make calls. What does a prepayment system mean in the larger context of where we are today, given that we've got large centres of commerce behind us and we're operating in a bankruptcy situation?
Well, perhaps the word prepay is not the correct word. However, it's pretty accurate. As I mentioned, the system of whereas the citizens have the opportunity of discharge of public debt, that basically encompasses the concept of the prepay and so forth. There are also other things that happen in commerce which demonstrate prepay. Most people don't understand that when they give their signature to a corporation, the corporation can fund the account based on their signature. In the United States, a corporation that has an accountant who understands that can actually go to the Treasury and collect $2 million simply based on the signature on the application. So there are several situations where the prepay occurs. It's evidenced by the fact that we're operating in the bankruptcy, and one of the easiest evidences of it has been when you go and do a purchase where you use currency. The retailer will always give you a cash receipt